There we go. All right. And now we have Eriksen from Oceanside S.A.F.E Coalition to start us off. Thank you,
Yay. Thank you, Gabriella, and thank you everybody for being with us this evening. Thank you for signing on. We're so happy to have you here with us tonight. We have such an incredible and informative presentation prepared for you all today. I just want to start quickly by introducing you to Oceanside S.A.F.E Coalition and the truly important work that we are doing with the community for the safety and wellness of our youth overall. Specifically, I'm going to be addressing what you see here. This is our Be the Wall Between Teens and Alcohol campaign. You can find all of our campaign materials. If you are here in person, we have a nice table, but definitely any time that you see us out in the community or any time that we are having an event, please, please, please collect the materials and information that we do have for you because they're very informative, they're very helpful, and you can never have too much when it comes to taking care of your children and keeping them safe. All right, so I'm going to get started. Whoop. How do we go to the next slide? Sorry, I'm going to get started when I figure out how to work this. There we go. Okay, now I know. Thank you, Isai. All right, so this is Oceanside S.A.F.E Coalition. This is who we are. So for those of you who do not know who Oceanside S.A.F.E Coalition are, we are a group of like-minded individuals from the community of Oceanside. We were formed in 2015 and we received DFC funding with drug-free communities in 2019. Our mission statement is that our mission is to prevent and reduce alcohol and substance misuse among youth by engaging in environmental strategies and programs and activities to help create a safe and healthy drug-free Oceanside overall. So our coalition, and this is just a little example of who is involved in our coalition, but it doesn't necessarily cover everybody. We have individuals sitting on our coalition from Oceanside parents, Oceanside High School Youth Council, representatives from our high school and our middle school, members of our 4th Precinct, Chamber of Commerce. So really just all of our community stakeholders and open to all of our community residents who want to be involved. We are not a place that actually, performs all of these different programs and activities. We all meet together, we brainstorm, and then we branch it out throughout the community. So the idea is to get this spread out throughout the 12 sectors of our community so that this becomes something that is just happening all over. So this is just a general idea about who meets on the Oceanside S.A.F.E Coalition and who we would like to be sitting at our table when we do meet once a month. So here you have examples of all the different 12 sectors that do sit at our table each month. And we try to have at least one representative sit with us once a month or at least be actively engaged in the planning of our coalition activities. So just a little bit about the coalition process. Our coalition was able to prioritize our substances of focus by and our root causes and our local conditions by collecting and evaluating our local data. So our 2019 Youth Development Survey helped us in identifying that underage drinking and marijuana use were 2 of the main target substances that we needed to really address among youth. We did just repeat our Youth Development Survey this past year, so it will be very interesting to see how those numbers have changed and maybe how some of our substances of focus have grown or altered. So that will be something that we'll be paying attention to once we get that data back this year. So this is just some of the data that we've collected from our Youth Development Survey, and this shows our past 30-day usage rates. So alcohol and marijuana were the substances that had the highest percentages, and vaping did seem to be the highest avenue of smoking marijuana or tobacco. So a very notable finding that we did find is that past 30-day use for alcohol is higher in Oceanside than the state average. So that was something that was obviously concerning for us. And this is actually consistent with all of the surrounding towns to Oceanside. And this is an example of our logic model. So when we actually put together some of our, our workshops or really try to target our workshops and target some of our environmental strategies, we take a look at our data. We're very, very data driven. So this is for underage drinking. And this just gives a little bit of an idea about how we figure out what our root causes and what the local conditions that are actually unique to Oceanside are. So one of those is the permissive attitudes of parents, and our local conditions that we found through collecting our data is that children are being supplied alcohol at their graduation parties and celebratory events. And they're also having tailgating parties prior to sports events where they're, kind of given areas where they're drinking at home Maybe parents are feeling like if they're supervising these things, that their kids are safer and they can kind of keep more of a closer eye on it. So these seem to be two of the local conditions that we're working with here in Oceanside. So when it comes to Be the Wall, for the Be the Wall campaign, that's a little bit of the information that really inspired us to start the Be the Wall campaign. So research does show that parents are still the #1 influences in our teens' lives. So the Be the Wall campaign supports and reminds parents along with our community to really keep the message clear when it comes to talking to your kids about underage drinking. So it promotes the importance of talking to them regularly. It provides tips about hosting safe, substance-free parties, and it really just aims to raise awareness on the root causes of teen drinking. So we're looking to change those behaviors, some of those permissive attitudes that have just become, second nature to us, that really enhance social access overall. It also provides resources for parents with information concerning the teen brain and really what it looks like. So we're going to get probably more into this as we go into our conversation and the rest of our presentation tonight. But this is just a little idea about what the teen brain looks like. So it is still developing up until the mid-20s. And the still developing brain of teens causes them to take more risks. So they're at a higher risk of binge drinking. They're at a higher risk of addiction and other long-term lasting brain changes as a result of underage drinking. So the Be the Wall campaign really just encourages parents in our community to be clear, be firm, be consistent, and be the wall when it comes to underage drinking and access to alcohol with our youth. So according to our most recent youth focus group, respondents said that the best part about living here in Oceanside is that they feel that it's a safe place with a really great sense of community where people come together. And they're so beyond right when they say that, because we do come together to support our neighbors in need. But now this is a really good opportunity for all of us to come together and support and really create that safe environment for our kids. And it really kind of follows the public health model of how do you save the fish in the polluted pond, right? You don't remove the fish, you change the environment. So that's just a little bit about Oceanside Safe Coalition, a little bit about our Be the Wall campaign. And I'm going to turn it over to Isai now from MADD, and he's going to continue with the second part of our presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to switch out my screen. If you could just bear with me for a quick sec. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Isai Fuentes. I am the Regional Program Director at Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I oversee New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And tonight we are going to present to all of you our Power of Parents presentation to all of you. Ali pretty much covered a lot of what I was going to share. Thank you for coming, really appreciate it. But no, we definitely are going to go a little bit more in depth about some of the things that she brought up, and just talk a little bit more about just what MADD does as an organization, especially for those that aren't familiar with it. So just so you know, at moments, I might look at the screen or to the audience, not ignoring, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to enter in the chat box, or even after the fact, we'll answer the questions there too. Okay, so I want to first start with our mission statement, because perhaps some people are just not really familiar with who we are and what we do. So with our mission is to end drunk driving, help fight drugged driving, support the victims of these violent crimes, and prevent underage drinking. Since 1980, we have done so much to help our victims affected by drunk and drugged driving. And it all started with a mother who lost her daughter due to a drunk driver. And back then, there wasn't any organization out there that provided that help and support to victims of this type of crime. She wanted to do something. She wanted to fight for justice, but she also wanted to tell people that were in that same position that she was in. So she formed this organization. And since then, we have done a lot to help our community. At the end of the day, we just want to end drunk driving. It doesn't have to exist. It's 100% preventable. In regards to drugged driving, this is a whole different animal that's out there. We added this into our mission statement back in 2015, literally right before Colorado legalized recreational marijuana. And Colorado was essentially the first of the bigger states that did it. We now have this here in New York. It is something that we are actively working on to make sure that we can limit and prohibit whatever we can do ahead of time. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And that is definitely something that can affect a lot of people out there. But it's not just that. It's also regular medications, over-the-counter medications, prescription medications. A lot of us don't always take those into consideration when it comes to drugged driving, because if the label says don't operate heavy machinery, may cause drowsiness. And if you have to take it in the morning, maybe you shouldn't take it and then start driving to work or wherever you have to go. But overall, supporting our victims is truly important to us. So I want to touch a little bit more about that in the next several slides. But before we get into that, I want to share a quick video and then we'll go ahead. And it's not playing. Apologies, everyone. Let me try. And that is okay. We will just continue. So what I did want to touch on is victim services. Victim services is one of our essential pillars of our mission, as I mentioned before. And again, we want to make sure that we help any victims in need of support out there. Because when it comes to the term victim in our world at MADD, it's not just the person that was directly impacted. It's their families, extended families, and entire communities. And we do everything completely free of charge. And here are just a couple of quick examples of the things that we do offer to our victims out there. One of the biggest things that I'm really proud of that we do offer is court accompaniment. Imagine being in a courtroom. You just recently lost someone, or perhaps, you survived a crash and your whole world turned completely upside down. But that person responsible for it is on the other side of that courtroom. It's extremely emotional for our families that we work with. So we want to make sure that we can assist them and just hold their hand throughout that process. So again, like I mentioned, everything that we do is completely free of charge. So this is Rachel. She is our Regional Victim Services Director, overseeing the whole region of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And currently we are actually in search of finding someone local here, but anyone can reach out to us anytime, at any point, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to us directly, and we can connect you to our local victim advocate, which will be hired really soon. So we're really excited about that. And just finally, I want to quickly mention, like I said before, we're going to talk about our Power of Parents presentation today. We do have a Power of Youth presentation too, which Ali and the whole coalition were kind of, thinking in our heads what we can do next. And that is something we hope to also offer in the near future for the community here. So I want to start off with a quick video. So Dr. Robert Teresi, he is a professor from Penn State. He is also a New York native. He's actually from the South Shore area. And actually, he is one of the co-creators with Mothers Against Drunk Driving about our Power of Youth presentation. So I want to play his video, and hopefully this one will work. And then we'll go ahead. And we will try it a different way instead. Here we go. Oh, and it's not sharing then.
So alcohol is the most prevalent drug used in the United States, other than coffee. But it's the largest one. It's usually the one that kids get exposed to earliest in their lives. It's really hard not to go somewhere in the United States and be away from alcohol. So when parents ask me why alcohol, why should we talk about alcohol, all the risky things that can occur, it's because it's the one that's out there the most. We don't advertise all of the drugs during sporting events and other things. So a lot of our kids are exposed to alcohol advertising at very early ages. When they watch games on TV or they watch games live or something along those lines, the endorsement of alcohol is pretty popular. And the access to it is in every home. I'd say every home, but it's in most homes. So alcohol is a great place to start these conversations, especially since many adults drink socially. It's a good opportunity to talk about their own drinking, why drinking can be healthy at times and harmful at other times. That's not to say that other drugs aren't important to talk about. Yeah, we're in the midst of, unfortunately, opium crisis. there's a lot of reasons why that's going on. And a lot of parents are being exposed, unfortunately, to the fact that they have really good kids that have been exposed to opioids and are addicted. So I think it's really important to talk about a lot of different topics that are relevant in our society today. Alcohol being clearly one of them, marijuana being another one, opioids being another one. At the end of the day, we want our kids to be healthy and live positive lives and be passionate about things. And unfortunately, alcohol and other substances are usually not part of the developmental process of helping everyone.
Okay, so I do apologize to our audience in the library that unfortunately could not see the video. I'm gonna reattempt to share my screen, and but I do hope that everyone that is watching out there was able to hear and visually see the video. Okay. So, but one of the things, what I like about Dr. Teresi's message is that alcohol and Ali, you mentioned it too, it's the underlying thing that everyone is doing, and especially at a young age. And when we really think about it, it's one of the things that is most exposed out there too. So he mentioned sporting events. You know, if you really think about it, when it comes to the Super Bowl, for example, we're all there with our families, we're all watching together, we're enjoying everything. Of course, we all get a, you know, especially for those that are fans of football, you got a kick of the game. And then you also, everyone else gets a kick of the commercials too. But every other commercial break, there is some sort of alcohol company that is pushing their product in the most hilarious or craziest way, whatever. And kids that are super young and older and adults are watching that all over the place. You know, we see it constantly. I go to do programs in New York City. In certain stretches of the highway, the Cross Bronx, when I'm in traffic, every billboard is some sort of alcohol billboard there. You know, because when we get to the real of it, you know, alcohol is a drug and the #1 choice of youth. You know, teen alcohol use also kills more than 4,300 youth per year. Kids who start drinking young are 7 times more likely to be in an alcohol-related crash. I'm not sure if you can see the little graphic there, but what it states that a lot of kids starting at age 8 start weighing the pros and cons about alcohol. So I don't know about you, but at age 8, I was definitely not thinking about this whatsoever. But what I will say, I'm the proud uncle of 6 nieces and nephews. My youngest nephew is, he's 2 years old. He knows how to actively use his iPad, his apps that he likes for his games. He goes onto YouTube Kids. He knows the videos that he likes to watch. If you're thinking that those little kids out there don't know what's going on around you, they definitely do. They know how to manage everything. They're really observant and they listen to every single thing. Because at the end of the day, you know, and as Ali mentioned before, parents are that #1 thing that they see all the time. So now having that in your head, let's go into Y21. So I want to share another video and I hope it works the correct way, and then we'll go ahead. And that is okay because we will continue. Unfortunately, I do apologize. So I want to talk about the brain. So we all know when it comes to brain development, your brains are not fully formed into your mid-20s. One of the last parts of the brain to form is your frontal cortex right above your forehead. And that's where you have your judgment. We use judgment every single day, you know, as adults. But when it comes to teens, you know, they use it every single day too, perhaps with not the extent and severity of things that we use it every day, but it's really important for them too. And when we look at the timeline of what your brain looks like, starting at age 5 to age 20, all those different colors there, the bright ones especially, signify parts of the brain that are less mature and have a lot of development going on, especially towards the front. So there's that little square that's towards the front section, and that does indicate parts of the brain that has a lot more development happening in your frontal cortex area. But even at age 20, there's still a lot of development that is still happening, especially during that portion. You know, this is actually one of the biggest reasons why the law is at 21. And MADD was at the forefront of that. You know, it took a lot of pushing from those mothers, especially from our founder, back in the day, that was pushing so hard for that, because for those that do remember, the laws were at 18, 19 until it got to 21 here in the United States. So it's extremely important for everyone to realize that your teen's brain is not fully formed into your mid-20s. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have the law here. So because the video function isn't working, I'm going to skip this and I'm going to go ahead. So this is actually a question that I have for everyone. And if you have a chance to just chime in through the chat box with just your response, I would love to hear it. And I'm also going to ask the group here that's watching as well. It's a really simple but a complex type of question. And let's see if everyone gets it correct. So this is actually one of the questions that I do present during my Power of Youth presentation. And when it comes to this question, everyone typically gets it wrong. But there's obviously a lot of reasons why, which we'll get into after the fact. But this is the question for everyone. What percentage of teens ages 12 through 20 binge drink? So we all know, to define binge drinking, a lot of alcohol in a short amount of time. So what does everyone think? So in here in the room, what does everyone think about the answer? Okay, we got a B so far. Anyone else? Okay. A, okay. Okay. So so for everyone watching, we're kind of a little bit all over the board, but we're 2 for B and everyone else A, C, or D. And then we got a couple of answers. Okay, so Sarah's iPhone, C, okay. And then I'll just give it a couple more seconds and then we'll talk about the correct answer. I like giving this question because it really makes you think about what the number could be. The correct answer to this question is actually 8. It's 12%. So we all think that it's a higher number. So in here, the 2 people thought it was B. We got an A, we got D as well, and we got C. But when we really think about it, yes, underage drinking happens. I'm sure that each of us can agree with that. But the thing is that a lot of teens out there think that everyone else is doing it. And that is it's the perception that's out there. And we, of course, do not want that to happen whatsoever. So when we talk about this presentation with our teens, we always let them know that it's always those other factors out there that make people think that this is actually happening. So within the roles of friends and peers, many middle and high schoolers tend to overestimate how many teens drink alcohol and how much alcohol is actually consumed. The perception that everyone is drinking when in reality, the majority of teens don't drink. It leads to the belief that is normal. It's always the peer pressure aspect that happens. And that's something each of us here, and perhaps we still do as adults, because I definitely get it, that we want to fit in. We want to be part of the crowd. And unfortunately, those perceptions and those beliefs then cause more teen drinking. And that, of course, is something we definitely do not want to do whatsoever, because it's going to be more teens out there. But the reality is, I knew many of my friends from high school. They would always say, oh, yeah, I was at the party, knowing really well they were not there. They just want to, of course, fit in. It's always about just keeping up with the Joneses, but just in teen high school world. So parenting styles. So this is actually something that is extremely important to talk about too. But before I get into it, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. So one, I'm not a parent. I am a proud uncle, like I mentioned before, and we, of course, are not telling anyone you need to parent, your parenting is wrong or anything like that. But one of the things within our programming that we'd like to talk about is the parenting styles, because it is extremely important, like I mentioned before, and Ali mentioned too during her intro, teens see everything, and whatever attitudes are happening at home directly from the parents, it trickles down. So the positive and authoritative parenting style that is listed on this chart right here, that's actually the parenting style that MADD actually recommends, because it's using your authority to strengthen and protect, but not control the teen, building trust and teaching teen skills to make decisions. So in this aspect, I want to give a quick example. So my parents came here to this country in the mid-'80s, and they came from Central America, very strict upbringing. And they pretty much influenced those upbringings and just the strictness with all of us as kids. I'm the second out of 6. And with me as the first male and my older sister, we got a lot of the brunt of it. So it's always, it's my rules, it's my house, you can't do this, you can't do that, and making all these things up. So at the same time, when we were now teenagers, my cousins, which were around the same ages that me and my older sister were, they were having issues with just, things at their schools, just personal life. And then it did lead them into road to trying alcohol early. One of my cousins, overdosed really early on, when he was 17 because of all of that. Because my uncles and aunts, they had the same parenting style as my parents did. As I mentioned, I'm the second out of 6. My youngest siblings, my parents realized what was going on around them, and they actually changed around their methods of how to parent them. So that positive and authoritative type of style, that is actually what they don't realize it, but they actually did implement that with my youngest siblings, because the conversations that I was seeing with my youngest siblings, they were asking questions like, what is going on in school? Like, are you concerned about this? Are you concerned about that? Again, still making their rules and doing this and that and so on. But they were having conversations. And of course, me and my sister were like, that's messed up. Like, what about us? Like, you're mean to us. But of course, one thing that I realize now, being 33 and seeing my parents and seeing my siblings raising their own kids, there's always different adjustments that parents can do. And that's okay, if you start off in a different type of way. But, something where you can have those active conversations is always a great thing, because right now, especially, we're heading into summer. I know for Oceanside, graduation and prom are coming up soon. We are also in the start of the 100 Deadliest Days, which for us at MADD and everyone out there, it's from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's one of the most dangerous times of the year because the weather's great. Graduation, prom, summer, all these different holidays where people can go out there and do whatever they want to do. But the misperceptions that are out there when it comes to adults, and Ali kind of mentioned it too, and I'm going to touch on that as well. It's those special occasions. So those barbecues that we're having outside, letting their teen drink at home, it takes away the mystery, decreases their desire to think. One of the things that I didn't think about that I noticed that Ali had in the previous slide up there was, having tailgating parties, especially like before a big event. If it's something happening at home, as a parent, perhaps you might think, well, they're at home, they're okay, they're safe, we can observe them and everything. But having those behaviors start will lead them to erode a more consumption outside of the home. And who knows what's happening there? Are they getting observed? Are they getting supervised? We don't know that. And, that is something we definitely just want to avoid completely. I'm kind of, again, going to my background. When it comes to the Latino community, when we have parties, we have parties. And literally, it could be a party for a 1-year-old and the whole family's there. And there's tons of alcohol there and everyone's having a great time. But again, all these kids that are out there, they're watching their parents doing this in this type of environment. So it's okay to definitely, as a parent, to drink, if you would like to drink, have a great time, enjoy. But then educating, okay, we're here at dinner, we're here at home, I'm having a glass of wine, I'm having a beer, and we're at home. Or if you're out and about, maybe you drank a little bit too much and say, you know what, no, your mother's going to be the designated driver, your father's going to be the designated driver, or let's call an Uber. We both cannot drive. Showing them those examples of what you can do is always a great thing, because again, they're highly observant of what is happening around. Because as I mentioned before, if teens drink more, they'll drink more often and we'll have a road of more problems. And that's, of course, something we don't want. So trying to avoid, having your teens consume whatever is out there, especially under your own roof, is definitely the best thing to do. And educating them, here are the laws. And I get it, maybe it's a spiked seltzer and it's not that serious. There's not a lot of alcohol content there, but they will latch onto those behaviors and just continue it more outside of the house. So what can we all do? 3 out of 14 say that parents are the leading influence on their decisions about drinking alcohol. And we did talk about a lot of really important highlights within our presentations that we offer to middle school and high school parents out there. And, so Ali will be sending out everyone digital handbooks, which has a lot of great information and tips on how you can bring that conversation home. Because again, whenever something comes up, it's always a great thing. Unfortunately, the last couple of days here within our Long Island community, there's been a lot of crashes that have happened, and some of them have involved impaired driving. So you perhaps can, start a conversation by using that as an example of, this is what happened here, just letting you know about it. And this is what we can maybe do at home. We can come up with a plan together. We can do something, because using the how, what, why, getting into the habit of asking permission to ask questions, making sure, of course, you want to be okay with them. But if they have a fear or if they want to bring up something to you, let them do that. When I was a kid, I was so afraid of my dad. I never wanted to ask him anything. It's completely polar opposite now. And I still go to my parents, and I'm sure a lot of us here, we go to a trusted adult or a parent, even now, to ask them about anything that's coming up, so we can start all that early just by having conversations at home, because at the end of the day, they're listening, they're observing, they know what's going on. So we just always want to make sure that everyone just can have proper conversations at home. So with the second portion of my presentation, I'm actually really pleased to introduce all of you to someone incredibly special. I've had the pleasure of knowing her since I started at MADD in 2015. Since then, she has evolved to the level that she is now. She was a completely different person when I met her and has really come out of her shell to really share her story. And I don't want to take her thunder. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to all of you in person and also virtually, Michelle Richards, to share her story. Michelle, the floor is yours. So you're just going to have to put the arrows here.
Okay.
Yep, and then that's the preview.
Oh.
Yep.
Hi guys, my name is Michelle Richards, and like Isai said, I have evolved. I do a lot of speaking. My mother was killed by a drunk driver. She was on her way to work. She obviously never made it. So she was driving to work at 4 a.m. in the morning. And a person that was going to be, he was coming home from his bachelor party. He was going to be married in 2 weeks. He was driving 60 miles an hour on Hempstead Turnpike going east. My mother was driving on Hempstead Turnpike going west. She was probably doing about 30 miles an hour and he was doing 60, and he hit her head on. And this is a little graphic, but the force of being hit head on literally knocked my mother out of the driver's seat onto the passenger floor. So the reason why I came to MADD was because I was just a mess. I couldn't deal with it. I was broke. Especially since my mother was killed. So now September 3rd, my life changed forever. So this person was twice over the limit, which was 0.10. And it was a BAC of 0.237. So he was admitted to Winthrop Hospital and she was pronounced dead at the scene. And this is the area that the road that she was on. Now, after that phone call, I thought about the night before, and I had an argument with my mother. Now, my oldest daughter would stay with my mom and go to work with her all the time. But I had a fight with her, and she was no longer going to work with my daughter. And basically, I just wanted to be mean, and I was. So my daughter is 42, and to this very day, she still thinks that if I didn't bring her home with me, she would have saved my mother's life because she would have made her late. But the thing about my mother was that she was never late for anything. So if you weren't ready to go, you're staying home. It was just that simple. She was never late. So for me, even though it's been so many years, it still eats me up every day because the hardest part is that I never got to say I was sorry. She was gone the next morning. So I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to tell you, this individual was charged with vehicular manslaughter, which is a D felony, and DWI. He was sentenced to just 1 1/3 to 4 years, and a year to be concurrent with the other sentence. So he went to jail. He was out in 20 months. So think about it. That's what her life literally came down to, was 20 months. Now, I was in the hallway when this individual was going to be sentenced, and his fiance was in the hallway also, and she was crying. And I'm thinking to myself, what? So I go over to her and I say, what are you crying about? Are you crying because he's going to jail? Well, he will come home, but my mother will not. I will have to go to the cemetery to visit my mother. So I said to her, you don't cry for him. You cry for me, because I will never see my mother again. If I want to talk to her, I have to go to the cemetery. 58 years is way too young to die. So it does break my heart every time I hear about another person injured or killed by a drunk or drug driver. It's not okay. These are all preventable crashes. Now, my kids used to go and eat at my mother's house every Sunday. And they never understood, why are we not going to grandma's house anymore? Now, how do you explain? I have 6 children. How do you explain to them, well, your grandma's not there anymore because a drunk driver took her life? My mother used to have a dog named Maggie, a golden retriever. This dog followed my mother everywhere. And, they watched TV together and sat in the yard together. And when my mother passed away, this dog was like literally dying of a broken heart. He would not leave the door of her bedroom. She would not eat. She just waited for my mom to come home. And, they're a dog, okay. They don't understand why she's not coming home. So it's very hard, to understand. So people don't understand what the consequences are of their actions until it's too late. They don't think their actions can affect anyone. Well, they're wrong. It affects everyone that is around you. When I was asked to come here, I immediately said yes, because awareness is key to keeping ourselves safe. I volunteer with MADD. I do victim impact panels. I work with law enforcement. I do sobriety checkpoints. I am logistics chairperson for MADD. Whatever I can do, I do, because if I can save just one person, then I've done my job, because one person turns into another person. This person was only charged 1 1/4 to 4 years. Well, my family was charged with a lifetime of having to live without her. And I would never wish for anyone to have to feel the pain that my family feels. Now, this picture, is my oldest daughter. And this is the daughter that said that she would have made her mother late and her grandmother would still be alive. But I tried to explain to her that even, if you did somewhat make her late, or even if you did go to work with her, I could have lost you also. So instead of just losing my mom, I would have lost both of them. So my thing is that drunk driving is 100% preventable. You make a decision. You want to go out, you make designated drivers. You call Uber, you call Lyft. There's places that some people are like, oh, I don't want to drive my car home. Well, there are companies that will come with 2 drivers. One will drive you home, the other one drives your car home. There is so much things out there to get you home without you getting behind the wheel thinking, oh, I can do it, I can drive. Well, you might have gotten away with it 1 or 2 times, but there will be a time when you won't get away with it and you will have destroyed families, innocent families, your own family, your own life. So if you do something like that, well, be prepared to have $10,000 just to retain a lawyer. Be prepared to lose your license. Be prepared to maybe lose your job. I still say that I honestly don't know how this person can live with himself. I know that if I had done such a thing, I would not be able to live with myself. I would have ruined and changed everyone's life forever. I do not want to see anybody else do this. I never thought it would happen to my family. And at one time I did hear a story about a family lost a loved one. And it was a long time ago. And I immediately thought, oh my God, how awful. And my next thought was, well, that'll never happen to my family. It did. It could happen to your family. It could happen to anyone. So please, please, please think twice before you get behind the wheel and drive drunk or a drug, or be under the influence of anything. Make a plan. Get yourself home. Nobody wants to make that phone call at 6 a.m. and tell them your child or your parent is gone. I'm very sorry. That is one phone call that no parent will ever want to get. So keep yourself safe. Make a plan. Don't drink and drive. It's not okay. And thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your story with all of us today. So one of the things that Michelle did not mention is that with her children and her grandchildren, because of her loss with her mother many years ago, their whole attitude has changed in regards to making a plan, educating her kids, her grandkids every single day on what to not do and of course do to help others. But we also don't want to get to a point where something like this needs to happen to your family out there, that you want to educate on your teens and your other family members. When you instill any education, but also conversations and encourage that at a young age, especially now when it comes to your teens, that would also lead to a road of them being more careful when they're now off to college, and then them being just regular adults, in the real world. And that is definitely something that we always want and we always encourage. So I just want to say thank you again to Michelle for sharing your story with all of us. And I did see a quick comment. Thank you so much, C. Ward, for sharing that. Just to read it off to everyone here. I'm so sorry for your devastating loss, Michelle. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you so much for your comment. We appreciate it. And, at the end of the day, we don't want anyone being impacted, whether they are impacted by a crash that's out there because they lost someone, or someone that they love and care about is a survivor of an impaired driving crash. We also don't want anyone on the other side either, where they are getting behind the wheel impaired. As Michelle said, one of the great things that you can also share with your kids out there is the luxury of options. You know, here in Oceanside, and just frankly, anywhere here on Long Island, we have the luxury of having so many things. Not necessarily saying that everything out there is the cheapest, most reliable option, but they're options, and we should think of it that way. It's not like we live somewhere in upstate New York in the mountains where we don't have trains or taxis or Ubers or anything like that. So getting into the mindset that, you know, that we have those options here, we should just think about it that way. So with that being said, I just want to thank everyone so much for hearing our story and also hearing our presentation today. I don't know if there's any questions out there for everyone watching virtually, but you're definitely more than welcome to enter something in the chat box. I'm going to leave my contact information up here. So if you ever want to reach out to us directly, you're more than welcome to at any time. As I said before, also the incredible coalition here as well. You can always reach out to Ali or anyone else here, or even to the library as well. I am so thankful to take a moment of your evening today to share our presentation with all of you. And thank you all for joining. Thank you all here for joining. And thank you, Gabriella and Ali and Barbara, for reaching out to me and making sure that we can do this. And hopefully we can come again in the near future to do more presentations. So thank you, everyone. Good evening. So again, thank you everyone for joining. We are going to stop the recording. And if anyone wants to hang out to ask any questions, you're more than welcome to.